Hey beautiful people, welcome back to my channel. This is Lenti Winyoni and I'm a girl Nani. Guys, today I bring you another exciting tutorial on how to make a crisscross romper, or also called a crisscross playsuit. Now here I have my basic bodice pattern. This is my neckline, my armhole, and I have my lines, the chest line, the bust point, chest line, bust point, under bust, half length and half inch for seam allowance to join to the lower part. Alright, so now I would start imputing my bust span line. Okay, my bust span is 8 divided by 2 gives me 4 plus half inch, that's 4.5. So I'm marking 4.5 on the chest line, on the bust point, on the under bust and on the half length. Then I would connect that into a straight line. Okay, so the next thing would be to take the under bust curve. All right, so on the towards the center front, I'll be taking 1 inch, and the same thing on the half length. Okay, I did this on the under bust and on the half length. Now towards the side front, I'm taking 1.5 on the under bust and on the half length, and this is because I am working with a bust 44, and for bust 44 the under bust curve is 2.5. So half 1 inch on the left hand side and 1.5 inches on the other side. So from the bust point I came down by 1 inch. Okay, if you're a smaller size you can do half inch. Then I would use my curve to connect the bust point to the under bust and do the same thing for the side front. All right, so having done that, the next thing to do would be to take my upper dart. Okay, so on the chest line I'll be taking a dart of half inch on both sides of the chest line. Okay, then I'll connect it back to 1 inch below the bust point. Okay, I'm not taking it to 1 inch above the bust point. Remember we did 1 inch up and 1 inch down. Okay, but I'm taking this back to 1 inch below the bust point. Okay, so the same thing to the other side. All right, so for this crisscross it will be having a bust pad. It will be having a bust pad. Okay, I want to pad the bust area because I don't want this to be flattening by bust. Okay, so if I don't add the bust padding to it, it will be flattening my bust. Okay, but another method would be to use the bust dart. All right, so it's time to replace our dart. Now on my basic bodies I've not added any seam allowance, so I'm just replacing my dart. So on the chest line I'm replacing the 1 inch dart, then I'll be marking 2.5 inches for seam allowance. Now I'll be needing 1 inch to join the patterns after cutting out, then the remaining 1.5 inches they have is the side seam allowance. Alright, so on the waistline I'll be also taking the dart intake, so I'll be replacing the 2.5 inches dart allowance plus 2.5 inches. Remember, 1 inch is for sewing up the patterns, it's for sewing up the dart, and 1.5 is for the side seam allowance. Alright, so connecting that, my line is a bit slanted, so by the time I take in the dart, okay, it will fall back in place. All right, so having done that, I'll come in with my tracing wheel, okay, and trace out these lines, okay, because I need to have them on the other side of the pattern. Okay, remember my pattern is folded into two, so I need to trace this out so that I'll have it on the other side of the pattern. Now I have traced it out. Okay, so I would want to cut out my pattern. Now remember, I've added all my seam allowances. I've replaced my dart, I've added my seam allowances, so I'll just cut through to the pattern. Now I'm cutting only like the basic body shape. Okay, I'm not cutting through the dart or anything. I'm just cutting through the sides to the armhole and the neckline. Now if you're wondering, my neck width is 4 and the neck depth is 4 also, so you can do 3 by 3 depending on your size. I'm a plus size, so that's why I'm doing 4 by 4. You can do 3 by 3 if you're a smaller size. All right, so I'm cutting through to the neckline. All right, so then I would open it up like so. So my tracing wheel has made marks on the other side of the pattern, so I'll just go ahead and use my marker to make those lines more visible. Okay, so I don't know if you can see this, but the dressing wheel has transferred my markings to the other side. So I'll just draw out the straight line. So that's the chest line, and that's the bust point, then the underbust, the half length. All right, so and that is it. So I would also highlight the center front. Okay, folding my pattern give me a crease line there, but I also want to use my marker to highlight that point. Okay, so that will make it more visible. Now this is when we'll start manipulating the curves to get the crisscross. So from the neck width, I would make a slanted line using my curve to meet the first dart leg on the chest line. Okay, so placing my curve ruler from the neck width to the first dart leg. Okay, so as you can see, I'll just curve it out. All right, so that is it. Then the next thing would be to determine how wide you want the shoulder to be. All right, so you can decide to use the full shoulder measurement, but I don't think it looks nice for me. I don't want it to be too wide, so I'll be taking 2.5 inches. You could do 3 inches if you prefer. Okay, so from 2.5 inches. Now I want to highlight my line. This is the bust point. Okay, this is the under bust. All right, so now on the bust point, I would come down by 1 inch. Okay, so from my bust point to my under bust is 4 inches, but I just want to come down by 1 inch. Okay, so I would connect from the shoulder to that point to that 1 inch I marked from the under bust, from the bust point, sorry. So placing my curve. Okay, making sure that I'll meet all the points. Okay, so I've curved that out. Now the next thing would be to still come down from the bust point by 1 inch. I just want to make a tiny opening around that part. Now if you're wondering why, if you check on the thumbnail, you see that the lower part has an opening around her belly region. Okay, so I'm just making out this curve from that 1 inch. I just make out this curve. Now I just want just that tiny opening. Now on the thumbnail, it has an opening along the belly, and I am not too daring. I don't have the lever to do that, so my own opening will just be at the top there. All right, so from the center front, I'm marking 1 inch down. But if you want to have that opening from your center front towards the other side of the dart, just come in by 1 inch and slant it towards that part. It will give you that opening it has on the lower area. But I'm not there. I have big tummy. My tummy is big, so I can't afford to show that. All right, so that is why I did my own tiny opening at the top. Now from there I marked 1 inch, and this 1 inch would be to turn my lining and also overlap the crisscross. All right, so I'll start cutting it out now. I hope I didn't get you confused. If you like, you can replay the video so you get all the details. All right, so I'll just cut through, as you can see. So just there, that is where I have that little opening there. Okay, just a little opening at the bust point area. Okay, nothing too daring, nothing too sexy. I don't want that. I'm not that bold. God, I don't think I can do that. All right, well, if you're daring, if you're confident in your body, you can do anything you want. It's your body, you can wear anything you want. Once you're comfortable, yeah, okay. Now, so from the neck width, I'll just cut through to the armhole, like so. Maybe I'll stop swallowing about by 12 midnight. Maybe then I'll start having a flat tummy, and I can now afford to wear anything I want. But for now, there are styles I wouldn't dare to wear. Alright. So after that, I can now start cutting out my dart. Okay, so like so. like so. All right, please don't mind me. If you are big, small, wear whatever you're confident in, whatever you feel like wearing. Please, your dressing should, your weight or your body stature shouldn't affect or change what you like to wear. Okay, please wear whatever it is you're comfortable, you're okay wearing. For me, I'm still battling with this whole plus size thing. All right, so now this is it. So beautiful. So what I'll be doing is to place this on my fabric, and I'll be cutting two of the center front and two of the side front. So now I've folded in that 1 inch allowance, okay, just so that you see. Now when I start sewing this up, you would see the reason why I made that 1 inch. So I'll be cutting two of these two pieces, okay. So here on my fabric, I've placed my pattern on my fabric, and at this shoulder point I'm adding half inch to join the shoulder, and onto this neck width, this neckline part, I'm adding half inch, okay. So at this point I didn't add anything, but then to the other side I added 1 inch to the top, half inch to the top, and that's all, okay. You can see the markings with my chalk. So I only added allowance to the shoulder point and to that neck with the neck depth area. Then to the side front, only to the upper part, that's where I added half inch seam allowance, okay. All the other allowances were added on the pattern, okay. So I would cut gently, 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 following the curve. Then here I'm adding my half inch, because I'll be using my lining to turn this part, okay. So that's why I'm adding half inch around that part. Then at the shoulder area, we'll be joining the shoulder to the back, okay. So that is why I added that to the shoulder, right. So to this point I'm just following exactly what I have right there on my pattern, okay. Keep cutting, keep cutting, keep cutting, keep cutting. All right, now if you're wondering why have I not been uploading, my dear, this Christmas season is so overwhelming. Will overcome. All right, I hope you have your Christmas presents for me. I'll come to your houses one after the other to demand, like to demand for my Christmas present, my rice, my turkey, my chicken, all of them. All right, so keep cutting, 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 cutting. And if you are still watching till now, have you subscribed? Like, what are you waiting for? Please join the family, join the community, subscribe, turn on your notification bell, like this video, share it with your friends, comment. If you have any questions, I'll be in the comment section to answer your questions. All right, so this is it for the front, okay. So when I take out my pins, I want to show us what this looks like, just to give us a clue on what we've made, because as it's folded like this, you don't even know what it is. It's looking like one triplet something, okay. But when you start placing it and when you start sewing it, you now start seeing the beauty. Oh my god. So this is the crisscross shape is going to give us. Okay, so remember this part, we just fold it in. This part is on its own. When we are sewing, that's when I will show us how to go about it, okay. So this is it. This is the other side. So I'll go and just lightly pad this, okay. I'll lightly pad this, both the center front and the other part. I'll just lightly pad it. All right, so for the back I just placed my fabric on fold, okay. Now remember the front, the armhole ended at the front added at the armhole, sorry. So my armhole is 9 inches, okay. So from 9 inches I placed my tape from 9 inches, then marked 18 and a half, which is my half length plus half inch seam allowance. Then at the upper part I added 1 inch, sorry, half inch for allowance. Then from there I just marked my bust measurement divided by 4 plus the allowances I need. Then remember, as you can see here, I have zip allowance of 1.5. okay, so I also added my dart allowance. All right, so another thing you can do is to just use the front pattern to make this mark, then add, just to get the length you want, then add your zip allowance, then take in your body measurements, okay, and cut out. I hope this part did not confuse you. Please don't get confused here. It's pretty easy. Okay, the armhole I use is 9 inches, so I placed my tape at -9. Okay, but leaving half inch to at the top so that I use it to turn my lining. Then marked my half length plus half inch. Then at the center back I added 1.5 inches for zip allowance, then took in my body measurements plus the same allowances that I need. So I'll slash through to my zip allowance. Okay, so now for the back, I'll just be adding straps to the back, or I can also change my mind while sewing, depending, but this is what I want for now. At the back, I would use straps. I'll cut out straps for it. So remember the chest line is 9. Okay, so for my strap now I'll be cutting out 10, 9 inch for the normal strap and the half inch to join. Okay, now for my dart, I've placed my bust span, then took half inch on both sides of the bust span line, then notched that part out. Alright, so the next you'll be seeing would be the pants pattern or the lower pattern. Okay, so just notch your zip allowance so that when you're sewing you will know where to place your zip. Alright guys, so now we want to cut the lower part, which is the pants part of this tutorial, the trouser part or the romper part, the short pants part. Okay, so here I have 2 inches from the side of my pattern, and at the upper part I also have some allowances like 1 inch. Then I've marked my waist to the hip, to the crotch, and to the length I want for this romper. Okay, so here I have the waist, which is 42 divided by 4 gives me 10.5. The hip is 44 divided by 4 gives me 11. The crouch is 12. Then for the crouch extension, you have to divide your hip by 20. So 44 by 20 gives me 2.2. I approximate that to 2.5. Now the thigh circumference is 28 divided by 2 is 14. The length is 21 and my hip depth is 9 inches. Okay, so just make sure you take this measurement. Now from the center front of my pattern, I just marked 2 inches there. Okay, that's separate. Okay, we're not touching that. Now from that 2 inch, I'm marking my hip divided by 4, and that is 11. Okay, so that's what I'm marking. I'll mark that on the hip line and on the waistline, so I'll take that up in a straight line. Okay, so I'll also do the same thing on the crotch line. Okay, I also mark the hip divided by 4, so I have 11, so I'm marking 11 here. Okay, now I have other videos on how to make a trouser. So when I'm making a pattern, I use this method. When I'm doing freehand, I use the other method. Now my crotch extension is 2.5, so from that point I'll just mark 2.5. okay, from that straight line I have there, mark 2.5. Then I'll go up by 1.5 inches. Then I'll use my curve ruler to connect. Okay, so from the crotch extension to the 1.5 inches we came up by to the hip part, then we'll just blend it up. Okay, now at the waist area we'll mark quarter of the waist measurement. So we have 42 divided by 4 gives us 10.5, so I'm marking 10.5 here. So you can see that's 10.5. Now if you be adding a dart to it, now be a good time to add your dart. Okay, if you want to add your dart. Okay, so I'm still thinking about whether I would need a dart, whether I want a dart or not, but for now I'm just covering it back to the hip. Okay, so as this tutorial progresses, I'll find out if I want to add a dart to this. Okay, so that I needed to shape your garment and give it a better fitting. Okay, so now that I'm a plus size, I think I would want to add a dart to this to make it more fitted. All right, so now the next thing will be to get the tie. So the tie is 28 divided by 2 gives us 14. Now what I like to do is to mark the tie measurement on the crotch line. Okay, so if I place my tie, like I said, the tie is 14, so you can see that I have exactly 14 there on the crotch depth. So if you use this method, you'll be so amazed at what you will achieve. Now, so from the crotch depth, I come down by 3 inches. Okay, so that is where I'll be marking my thigh circumference. I also mark the thigh circumference there. Now, if you want a play suit as short as the one we have there on the thumbnail, this is where the length of your drums of your romper would be. Okay, so you mark your thigh circumference there too and connect. Okay, so if you want a romper as short as the one you have there on the thumbnail, just come down by 3 or 4 inches on you from your crotch depth. Okay, but for me, I want it to be a bit longer, so that is why I have this length. Now, on the length of my romper, I'll also mark the same 14 inches, which is my thigh circumference divided by 2. Okay, then I'll just come in by 1/2 inch on both sides. Okay, because I want to taper it a bit inside. Okay, I want it to be a bit shapy. Okay, but not too tight. I'm just coming in by 1/2 inch on both sides, so it means I have 13 right there. Now, before you remember, the thigh circumference is 14. Okay, so it's 8 divided by 2 is 14. So at the lower part of my romper, I just took in 1/2 inch on both sides. Okay, but if you want yours to be like so, like the as shown in the thumbnail, just leave it at 3 inches below your crotch depth. Now I'm adding 1/2 inch seam allowance to the crotch part of my pattern. Okay, now to the upper part, I'm also adding 1/2 inch. Okay, so that we'll be using it to attach to the upper bodice. Okay, so I'll connect the lines. Okay, all right, keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going. I've used my curve ruler, but this my curve ruler is a dwarf ruler. I mistakenly placed my iron on it and it burnt, so I've been using it like that since then. All right, so to this other part, I also add my 1/2 inch down. All right, so after doing that, now to the sides, remember at the upper part, okay, when we're drafting the upper bodies, I used seam allowance of 1.5, so I'm also using 1.5 here now, so I'm adding 1.5. Okay, so 1.5 to the waist, the hip, the crotch, and to the lower part. Okay, so my 1.5 for the lower part is starting from that 1/2 inch I shaped inward. Okay, so I would connect that. So if you're making your normal pants, 1/2 inch or 1 inch is okay for you to do your side seam allowance. But when making jumpsuits, I like to have an excess allowance that if it's too tight, you can always make an adjustment. Okay, so I believe it's better to have an excess than to have a shortage. Okay, now what I use for the front is 1.5, so that's why I'm using the same thing for the back. Now to the lower part, I'm adding 2 inches hemming allowance. Okay, that I'll use to fold the lower parts of this my romper. Okay, okay, okay. All right, so this is it for the front. So this is the hemming or the hem allowance. It is 2 inches. Okay, now the next thing will be to impute the dart. Okay, like I said, I want to impute a dart to this. Okay, so what I'll do is to measure my crotch, what I have on the crotch. Okay, and mark the middle. Remember, I have 14 there, so half of 14 is 7, so I'm marking 7 from my original line. Okay, before the side seam allowance. Okay, so remember, from that box shape I have there, I'm marking my 7 inches from the original line I had. Okay, before adding my allowances, so I'm marking my 7 inches. Okay, then I'll connect them into a straight line. So this line is called the gator line or the green line or the tailor line or the trouser line. Okay, so whatever you call it, it is what it is. It is our dart line. Okay, so making this mark now, I'll come down by 3 inches for the front dart. Okay, then I'll mark half inch on both sides of this green line or the dart line, then I'll connect it. So this is my dart. All right, so I want to add the dart to this because it helps to shaping your outfit. So my dart is 1 inch. Okay, that's half inch on both sides. So I also come here and mark the 1 inch. I'll replace it. Okay, so you see the reason why I said have 2 inches before your pattern, before you start making your pattern. Okay, so that you'll be able to add all these allowances. Even 3 inches is okay. All right, so I shaped, after adding the 1 inch for the dart, I took it down to the hip part. Okay, so this is it for the front of my pattern. All right, so what I'll do is to cut it out. As you can see, so this is it. I use this method when I want to draft a pattern. It's super easy and it gives you amazing results. But if you want to do freehand, like you want to draft directly on your fabric, I have a video on my channel on how you can make a trouser. Okay, so you can use freehand. So you can use that method to also cut your romper. Okay, so remember my crotch depth is 12 inches, and what I did was to get the narrowest part of my waist. Okay, tie a rope around that place, then sit on the plain surface and measure from there to the top of the plain surface. My half length is also from my shoulder to that narrowest part of my waist. All right. Okay guys, now we want to cut the back. Okay, so the same thing as I had some allowances for the before the center front. Okay, I have also some allowances like 5 inches. Okay, then even at the upper part I also have allowance of about 5 inches. Okay, so I've used my tape to hold down the front on my pattern. Now from my actual crotch line, okay, I would come down by half inch. Okay, now but before I just do that, I'd want to extend my original crotch line. Okay, then I'll mark 2 inches from there. Okay, then come down by the half inch there, so that half inch is okay. So you can do 2 inches, 2.5, 1.5, depending on how big the client you're working with is. So now from that part, I'll be coming up by 2 inches. Okay, for the front we did 1.5. Now for this back we're doing 2 inches, so coming up by 2 inches, I'll use a dotted line to take it to half inch below the crotch line. Now for my gator line, okay, or for my crease line or my green line, I'll measure from the original line. Remember, I have half inch seam allowance, so I measure from the original line to the gator line, then mark half of it. Now the gator line is 4 inches, so half of it is 2 inches. So I marked 2 inches. I made a mark at 2 inches, then connect it with a dotted line back to the crotch. Okay, so I'll now use my curve ruler to shaping it out or to make the line more visible. Okay, so that is it. So I'll repeat that. Okay, from that point, from that green line, measure what you have there minus the seam allowance. Okay, and I had 2 inches. I had 4 inches, so half of that is 2 inches. So I made a mark at 2 inches. Okay, so now the next thing I'll be doing, okay, let me just take out this tape. Okay, so it will help us draft the pattern. Now, so from that 2 inches that we have there, okay, that point, I'll come up by 1.5. Okay, so you can do 1 inch or 1.5 depending on how big or small the person is. So I'll come up by 1.5. Okay, all of this is for the butt, so that when you wear your trouser or your romper, it is not, you can be able to see it properly. Now from there, I'll mark quarter of my waist measurement, so that is 4.5, sorry, 10.5. So I want to make sure that it terminates at the original waist area, okay, on the front pattern. So using a dotted line, I'll connect it to the 1.5 we came up by, making sure that the side seam meets the side seam for the front. Okay, the side seam for the back meets the side seam for the front. Okay, so right there is my 10.5, which is my quarter of my waist measurement. Okay, so from there now I can now add my allowances from there. All right, so this is 10.5. I want to make sure that that is what I have, so I'll take this up. Okay, 10.5 right there. So I can now add my 1.5 inches for my side seam allowance. Remember, it was 1.5 I used for the front, so I will extend the line to the 1.5 inches. Okay, so I'll then connect it back to the crotch, okay, or to the hip side. Just using dotted lines, I'll connect it back to the, so that it will match up with the front like so. Okay, so it's pretty easy. All right, so now I'll connect from that crotch side to the trouser length. So also come with dotted lines. Okay, and connect it to the lower part. Okay, so this is it. You can see, so all of this long stuff we have at the back will just help the butt area so that you can sit properly. You can jump, you can enter a bike, you can do anything you want to do. All right, so now for the back, I'll come down by at least 6 inches, or even 6 or 7 inches depending. Okay, so I'm marking 7 inches. So from there we'll add our zip allowance. You know, this is a romper, so it has zip allowance at the back. Now the zip allowance I added to the front part is 1.5, so I'm adding 1.5 back. Okay, and this is my zip allowance. Okay, this is my zip allowance. All right, so then from that point I'll be adding half-inch allowance. Okay, remember, I added allowances to the front, we'll be also adding allowances to the back, half-inch. All right, so if you feel 1.5 is too much, you can just do 1 inch. So I'm doing 1 inch. Okay, it's not a must that this zipper must align. You can trim off the excess on the front. Okay, or you can bring the 1 inch down. Okay, but when you're sewing, just know that you're sewing half-inch from the crotch upwards, then from where you are attaching your zip, you are sewing 1 inch. It's just to know what you did and follow it. All right, so now at the sides, I'll just trace exactly the same shape I have on the front pattern. Okay, I'll trace it down to the lower part. Okay, so this is it. So when I take out the front, this is what we have for the back. Okay, so this is the front and this is the back. Okay, so this is it. Now for your back, you can also decide to add that to the back. Okay, so what I also do is to measure that from my main line to the ghetto line. Okay, remember we have 4 inches, that's what we had now. So make a mark at 4 inches, then come down by 4 inches for the back dart. Okay, you want to slant that a bit, okay, because the line there is slanted. Okay, just slant. You can see the way I'm slanting my ruler. All right, so I take half-inch on both sides, then connect it for the dart. Okay, so that's unnecessary. They are compulsory parts of our garment, so to shaping and give a perfect fit. So from there, I'm also marking my 1 inch for the dart now. So I'm adding the dart allowance, then I'll take it down to the trouser, to the romper. Okay, down to the side. All right, so you can see that whatever we are taking out, we're replacing it. So I would cut out. Okay, then cut this upper part. So this 1 inch, please don't get confused, that is the dart allowance. Okay, so I'll cut through to this side. like so. So now, if it's your normal trouser, you can do half inch, okay, at this point. If it's your normal trouser, normal pants, what you'll be adding is half inch, okay, the same half inch you use, the same allowance you added, because you won't be needing a zip at the back. So if it's your normal short or pants, you can add half inch, just add half inch. But now we are using 1 inch for the zip allowance, okay, remember, just 1 inch. All right, so this is it. So I'll be posting a video on how to sew.